Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC. With me is,
Oof.
and today we have a very special guest. I'm very excited about this one because we brought in a published author, which is a first, and I'm very excited. Please introduce yourself, good ma'am.
Hi, my name's MJ Spickett, and
So,
I'm
first,
from,
go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
sorry, I'm from Ontario, Canada.
The best place, obviously, and and for the first time throughout this talking, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. And yeah, just thank you. I've read a bit of what you wrote because I sadly didn't have time to catch up on everything. You wrote a lot of things, but from what I read, I really enjoyed them.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I read the first book in the Gods Amongst Dragons saga and very
Oh,
much enjoyed the first book. Like it's a very enjoyable read. To our viewers, like absolutely go pick it up if you're interested in Vikings, mythology, a little bit of fantasy. You'll have a very enjoyable read here.
Which, if you
oh,
listen to us from a long time ago, Dragon podcast, you probably are into those things. So, yeah, yeah.
well, I'll admit it was inspired by How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay, already jumping the gun here, but we'll get to this later. So, but before we ask you some questions, for those who might not necessarily know you by name or know that you are the specific author of a certain book that they read, um, please tell us who you are. What is it that you do?
Well, I've been an author for over 20 years now. I've written everything from modern fantasy to urban fantasy, historical fantasy, and now I write erotica and thrillers.
Mhm. Very, very interesting. And are there any specific names that people can know you from? Like, what would you say are your most well-known books?
Probably the most well-known series is the Raven's Realm series. That
Hmm.
series has a total of 5 books, beginning with Raven's Child, and then Windows to the Soul, Chaos Within. I gotta think here. It's been a while. Immortality and When Darkness Falls. It's a
Hmm.
5 book series. It's urban fantasy, and it originally was published, oh my gosh, about 2004, and then has been republished about 3 other times now through various publishing companies.
Hmm.
Rewritten so many times I can't remember now. But
It's okay.
it's my first series and probably the most well known.
Hmm. And do you actually know about international publications? Because I'll have to see if it's around here somewhere.
I don't think it's published internationally yet. I know it's in Canada and the US. You can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, a few
Hmm.
other online stores. It used to be in chapters here in Canada, as well as Kohl's. But right now, I think it's mainly on Amazon. It's going through a whole rewrite again, and I think the 4th edition's coming out in the next 2 years. So
Hmm.
lots going on with that.
Okay. Who knows? Maybe international, releases will come later. I'm crossing my fingers.
Well, that's what
So,
I'm hoping as well.
okay. So now that people know who you are, Wolf, you have the first question.
Oh boy, where do you want to start?
Well, go by the script. I
Uh,
wrote it for a reason. Wink, wink.
yeah, but you didn't write it in a good order. Anyways, I guess
Yeah,
we'll start there. What got you into writing slash made you want to become an author?
Well, I began writing when I was a kid. It was kind of like an escapism. My family was sort of, you can view them as gypsies. We moved all over Canada, primarily through southern Ontario. and I never stayed in one place for long. So as a way to just keep my head and keep myself grounded, I started to write. I didn't start publishing my own, like getting myself published until I was a teenager, and I was usually in school magazines and stuff like that.
You start somewhere.
Yeah, and at that time, I pretty much saw myself as a publisher more than a writer. So I used to publish a fan magazine based on Transformers called Silicon, and then I did a comic book series for a short time. I didn't start writing for actual publication till I was in my mid-20s. And so that is now like 20 years ago when I first wrote Raven's Child and the Raven's Realm series. And since then, it's just, I keep writing. You know, I've written novels, I've written film scripts, I've done fan fiction. I'm always writing.
Well, you know, a lot of people do start from fan fiction today and they move on to actual publications. So it's nice to see someone who made the switch.
Yes. And I still bounce back and forth. I still write fan fiction from time to time. Not as much lately.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
Okay, so but with that said, you know, so you have 20 years of writing under your belt, but when you started, would you say there was a certain author or writer or any sort of name that, you know, influenced your style or the themes you talk about in your book? Like,
yeah, actually, Laurel K. Hamilton was a huge influence on me, and same with Kelly Armstrong. I love the writing, as well as Stephen King. Stephen King has been a huge influence throughout my life. I love the fact that he was able to go from doing his novels to having them made to film, which is kind of one of my goals. It's a passion project to turn this new novel series into a film series at some point, that or even a TV series. So I do script writing as well, which
interesting.
it's a lot of fun to do. It's completely different from writing a novel because you have to compress so much in such a short period of time because each page equals 1 minute. So you have to really pace yourself and time yourself.
Yeah, I know all the struggles as a film major. Believe me, I've been there. But you know, since you mentioned this kind of a bonus question to that, since you said you like Stephen King because he managed to turn his movies to films, is there a particular Stephen King book or movie that got you specifically? Like, what is there a specific one?
Yes, Firestarter. Firestarter was the one that really drew me in and got me addicted to a lot of the Stephen King novels and films.
Okay, well, just wondering because I'm familiar with some of his works, so was interested in that.
Oh, well, Firestarter is still the best. Drew Barrymore was a great actress. She was very young at the time. And right now I think they're redoing it. They're doing a reboot.
Well, hopefully it's good. Hopefully.
I hope so.
Because you know how some reboots tend to be, sadly.
Oh,
But
yes.
no.
There's some.
On that note, I just had a friend of mine just saw Cruella, which was just released, you know, this weekend, and
yes,
oh boy, the things she told me. But this is not. We're not going to talk about that now.
All reboots are great. What do you mean it's bad? No.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
Wolf, we are not going into the Rescue Riders debacle in this. Moving on, you got the next question.
Actually, I'm going to, as HC says, do our unprofessional way and go off script. You talked about, you know, writing fan fiction. I'm very curious, you know, being a published author and everything. You know, for you, is there a big difference between going from fan fiction to writing for your own novels and stuff, or does it feel very much the same? Like there is no real big jump or difference between the two. It's just more writing.
Well, I find there's more research because if you want to write to be published, you need to know what you're talking about. So with this new series, I'm doing a lot of research into Mexico and Aztec traditions, temples. What else? Like book one, that was my main research was all these different locations I was using because we were bouncing from Canada to London, England, to Mexico City, to South Africa. And so I needed to learn about those cultures and the landscape and buildings and architecture and stuff, that type of stuff. Book two, it was takes place more in Canada, but we also have a lot happening in the Arctic. So I had to learn about the Coast Guard, icebreakers, the different types of ships that are able to handle going that far north and cut through the ice, the timetable it takes to get there. Book three is a lot of it takes place in the ocean, the Bermuda Triangle. So I had to do a lot of research on that and scuba diving, deep sea diving, personal submarines, as well as the mini submarines used for research, drone technology. Going from fan fiction where you can kind of make it up and you have resources to look back on, like in the case of How to Train Your Dragon, you can watch the series. You pretty much know everything you need to know. You don't have to do a lot of research. Like everybody knows Toothless and Hook Fang, so you don't have to research the biology or anything. So writing for publication, if you want it to be believable, you have to do the research.
Yeah, that's actually side note on that. You say you don't really need to do research in terms of like names, but then there was a time actually between How to Train Dragon 1 and 2 where the person who wrote a fic didn't watch the show, so he came up with his own names for the dragons, and then people kind of gave him shit for that, to put it very mildly, and he was like, oh, apparently they have names.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I get. But obviously, it's different to from exploring cultures and actually see how people how people how people live, how people act, what are the traditions, and all of that good stuff.
Yes. So especially if you want your characters to mingle and you get to know these different cultures or interact with these different cultures, you need to be able to present them realistically, not so much in a fantasy or make up a whole bunch of stuff. You wanted people to be able to associate to it.
Yeah, of course. If you're gonna represent someone, do it the best you can.
Exactly.
Okay, so for the next question, so you currently wrote three series of books, and you have a new one coming out, which you talked about already. So what do you say is more challenging to you, writing a sequel to a story that's already out, or start another one from scratch? What would you say is easier? What's harder, and what do you prefer?
Well, I find starting a new series from scratch is usually the most difficult, because like when you already have a series, usually you have quite a bit of the research done in book one, and you can just translate that throughout the series, which I did with Raven's Realm, and same with The Women of Ravenwood. Those two series, they kind of follow each other. There's still a lot of research, but most of your world is already established. Where when you have to start from the scratch with a new series, you have a whole new world to build. So it takes a little longer. Sometimes it requires a lot more research, but it's a new adventure. So you get a whole new cast of characters and a whole new group of people to in places to kind of fall in love with. When I originally started out with the Raven's Realm series. I think it took me about 3 years to complete that series with all the world building and everything. This new series was surprisingly fast. The Immortals series, first book was written in 24 days, and the second book took about 40 days. This third one I'm just starting right now, but each book is a whole new world building series. It's not like anything I've done before.
Okay. That's interesting that you actually take on new challenges with every series. Like you don't necessarily stick to a comfort zone. You are trying new things.
And that's the thing, if you get too comfortable in something, then it's just repeating the same story in a different setup. And that's not what I want. I used to do a lot of writing about magic and fantasy, where this new series is more kind of a modern day Indiana Jones. So it's a completely different world that it's a modern world, one that you can look out the window and see, but then there's that hidden depth underneath that you have to kind of dig at to find.
Interesting. And so just to kind of go over a little bit, what do you say you prefer to do more? Start from scratch or do a sequel? What's more fun to you?
I think starting from scratch. Starting from scratch has proven to be a lot more fun.
Which is interesting that you say that the more challenging option is technically the more fun one. That's a really nice way to look at it, gotta say.
Well, yeah, it's a whole new adventure for you just as much as it is for your readers.
Very much agreed. So, Wolf, next question.
I suppose you've already answered a part of this one about how much you try to differentiate between each of your works, but I would be curious to know, is there a fear with starting a new series and thinking that people are going to still draw comparisons between your older works and stuff of that nature?
I think all authors go through that. Like with my original series, it was written 20 years ago. I was just breaking out into, published writing. And so it was a modern day urban fantasy, but there was so many different elements of magic in it that, yeah, it kind of went through with a lot of my early works. And so when people research MJ Spickett, most of the time they'll find fantasy or magic attached to it. This trying to break away from that and find a different voice, but being able to keep my author name it's challenging, and a lot of people will automatically assume, oh, it has to do with magic or dragons or sorcery or something like that, where this series has none of that. It's like I said, it's kind of like the Indiana Jones in a modern day mixed with some erotica and I guess even a little bit of space and aliens.
Well, yeah, that is definitely a new direction. But again, I actually admire the will to say that this is what you want to do now. You can take a step back from what got you started.
And that was the big thing. It was kind of like, well, I wanted to try something completely new. Yes, there's mysticism in this series, but it's not the basis of the series. The basis is the relationship between these characters and this adventure that they're on, this huge mystery they're trying to solve and figure out that just keeps getting bigger and bigger each time they think they're coming to the end of finally figured it out. They're throwing another monkey wrench, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this isn't what we thought. Something else is going on. So we still have the mysticism in it, but we don't have that magic. We don't have sorcerers or dragons or anything like that in this. It's all, things that people deal with mixed in with this adventure.
And so consider this kind of like a bonus question in a sense that So you get started and you get noticed with fantasy, and like you said, there's magic and dragons and all that other stuff. And then when you start writing, like you said, Indiana Jones in real life, and you have this mystery, you have this even a bit of science fiction elements to it. Is there kind of a different mindset when you're going into into two completely different genres, like because fantasy and science fiction, all that stuff are pretty different. What
Mhm.
do you go into it with the same mindset, with the same ambitions, let's say, or is it same thing, different stuff I'm writing?
Well, I think it's the same ambitions almost, except for where one is more fantastical, this one's more realism. So it's, I guess, the different expectations is how to make this realistic as opposed to how to make this fantasy. So I guess it's the way you're trying to, or how I'm trying to project it. So, like, say with the Gods Among Dragons series, here we are in a Viking land and whatnot that existed over 1,000 years ago. So that's all fantasy land because all these dragons and supernatural events happening. Where the new series is more grounded into the here and now and using technology that is readily available, like drones, or researching into military technology and Interpol and the military from different countries to project them in a realistic way. So yeah, one you can kind of make up a lot of stuff to go along with it. The other one you have to um, project it in a realistic way where people actually know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. So, Wolf, you got the next question?
Yeah, sure. So, what is your writing process when you start any kind of book? Do you have an elaborated plan regarding how each story is going to play out, or you just come up with a general idea and figure it out as you go?
Well, it depends what I'm writing. Like if I'm doing fan fiction, I just automatically start typing and it's just kind of an easy flow. I don't really do a lot of plotting. Sometimes that can lead into a huge monster of a story.
Yeah.
When I'm writing for a publication, though, I tend to plot things out a little bit more because I want to make sure that there's no loose ends. Everything gets tied up nice and neat at the end, even if it's a cliffhanger. All of the main questions are answered. And so I have a notebook and I plot out each chapter. This series, every book's going to have 16 chapters. Every book is between 75,000 and 90,000 words. It's pretty much plotted out right to a T. Things do take a change though, because like you might plot something out, but the muses kind of just say, okay, well, we don't like that anymore. We're going to write this instead, which can completely change the book on you. And I've had that happen numerous times. But yeah, I usually plot things out. I'm one of those people, I'm very old fashioned. I like having a notebook with me. It doesn't matter if I'm at work or if I'm at home. Everything goes in the notebook first, and then I start to work on that chapter when I start typing it and make the changes as necessary. That's pretty much my writing style.
So to just before the next question, just to kind of go along with it, since you say you have a plan for each book, when you start planning, you have a plan for how a book is about to go, but not necessarily the chapters until later. But when it comes to a series, when you start the first book in a series and then you get picked up to doing more, do you have a plan for the overall series, or do you just one book at a time?
Well, when I first started this series, it was only supposed to be a standalone book. And I wasn't planning a series until I wrote the very last paragraph. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, okay, now I'm going to do a book 2. So book 1 can pretty much be standalone, but then book 2, 3, and 4 kind of turn into the series. So I knew after
they're
writing
more connected.
I knew after I wrote book 1 and I decided to start doing book 2, it was going to be a 4-book series. And each book deals with a different pretty much a different element. Like the first one is more forest and jungle based for the discoveries of these temples. The second one, it's only the one temple and it's in the Arctic. The third one is, again, we're dealing with one temple, but it's in the middle of the ocean. And then the third one follows up with, the fourth one follows up with the third one, which is going to deal with the desert. So it's different climates that we're dealing with. Right now with the ocean, that one's kind of more difficult because I would think dealing with the temple is underwater. So that takes a lot of research on how they can do that. Successfully reach the temple, be able to look around it without, with a limited air supply and timing, and just a lot more research. The fourth one shouldn't be so bad. That one is going to be in the Nevada desert. We're actually going to have a little bit of Area 51 mixed into it. And so, yeah, there goes our sci-fi. More of the sci-fi and government facilities. And it's going to be a lot of research for that one.
Well, good luck with all the research. I'm sure you're going to pull it off.
I can definitely... go ahead.
Yes? I love research, so...
Understandable. I can definitely see, when you talk about, trying to plan out your books and how you want them to, and how you like to resolve as much as you can in a singular book. Having read Brothers from the God Among Dragons series again, I can definitely see where you're coming from when you say that, because that book definitely, having read it, I felt like, a lot of this is resolved here, but there is still a bit of a mystery going forward to entice in the next coming books and everything. So I can definitely see that. I can definitely see how you like to write it that way. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, because you want your readers to come back. You want them to see the next book and get attached to it. And while book 1 is completely self-sufficient and ties everything up, book 2, 3, and 4 run exactly like a series. Like book 2 has this little wee cliffhanger. It's only like 2 sentences long, but it creates this little cliffhanger where people are going to want to read book 3 and see what happens. And then book 3 is going to have another little cliffhanger, and book 4 is just going to wrap everything up beautifully so that our main characters can kind of move ahead with whatever they're going to do afterwards. If it's going to be a different book series, if it's just ending right there, I don't know after book 4, but it's just to wrap those ones up.
Also, calling back to something else you said earlier too, right? You said that your new series, you're focusing a bit more in on the characters and doing more with them, and that interests me a lot personally, because having again read the first book in this series, I very much got very attached to your characters. I think you're an extremely good character writer. I loved the character interactions. I thought they were very good in this book. So that personally interests me a lot. So I definitely will be looking forward to that.
Oh, and thank you. Well, see, I wanted to take some of those elements that I wrote before in Brothers and whatnot and kind of introduce them into this scenario, where our main character, Alex Jackson, he's a young anthropologist, and he goes up to the Rocky Mountains. The very first chapter, he's up in the Rocky Mountains with his father and a research team, and they're searching for these ancient Native America artifacts and everything. And they end up coming across this Aztec temple in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, of all places. It's underground. It's been hidden for thousands of years. And just as they discover this and they go to do this research and investigate it, they're attacked by terrorists. And pretty much everybody in that team is wiped out except for Alex. He's severely injured, pretty much on death's door, and somehow he survives it. And so his mission in life becomes, why did this happen? why were we attacked? Why was everybody killed? Why did he lose his family and friends? And he develops a friendship with Lucas and Owen, who pretty much help him try and discover the truth behind what happens. And at the same time, he ends up falling in love. So he had spent all this time sheltering himself, pinning himself in this little wee box where he couldn't feel nothing or anything. And these two guys come along and they help open him up again and get him to accept that, okay, shitty things do happen, but we're going to find it, we're going to make things right, and you're going to move on with your life. You can't stay trapped in this shell because of what happened. So it's about self-discovery, healing, and opening himself up to falling in love again and having, can't say a normal life, but a normal-ish life, because he is so physically and mentally scarred by what happened that it's very hard for him to open up to anybody.
That's really interesting. I definitely tell me when this is out. I wouldn't read it. I want to read it.
Well, it's going to be available in early 2022, and Corvus Quill Publishing is my publisher now, and he's doing a great marketing campaign on Facebook already. So we do have some images. We don't have the cover page yet. It's with his head editor right now. And I'm hoping to have all 4 books out within the next 2-3 years.
That is very interesting, and I'll keep an eye out for that. So
yes, thank you.
But of course, but so back to our questions. Wolf, you have the next one.
Do I? Where are we at here? Yeah. All right. You've written for multiple genres, from thrillers to fantasy, young adults, and even erotica, right? Is one of those genres easier to write for than the others, you'd say? And for you personally, is there any particular genre you enjoy writing for the most?
Honestly, it's erotica. Erotica, it allows, you don't have to hold back so much. Like, you still have to be conscious of readers, but you're able to allow your characters to let out their frustrations, perform the sexual fantasies, write about things that really interest you. Like myself, I've always enjoyed writing erotica. And for my former publishers years ago, it was usually almost always straight or bisexual erotica. I wasn't really allowed to write gay erotica or too much LGBTQ. Now I'm allowed to finally do that. Usually that stuff I save for fan fiction.
Yeah, you said you started 20 years ago. I can see how back then it's different compared to now. There's a lot more media today, erotica or not, that is more open about it, and it's great. So I'm glad you got to do that.
Oh, and that's the thing. Like, back 20 years ago, there was very few LGBTQ erotica, and even when there was, it was kind of like hidden. You couldn't really promote it or have it in bookstores like you can now. Now it's more, people are finally accepting it, and that's why I finally said, okay, well, I'm not just going to write it for fan fiction anymore. I'm going to actually put that into my regular writing. I'm going to focus on these characters who have the story to tell and need to be able to tell it. And that's why this new series came about, and it's completely LGBTQ, in a positive way. None of the stereotypes that you see sometimes on television, where you have your top and your bottom, you have your wimpy and you have your macho. You don't have this here. You have people who have real stories, real lives. They're not trapped in this box that you see sometimes.
Yeah. And good on you for going there. Like, major respect.
Thank you. It's just I want to write it in a positive manner. Like, at least to the best of my ability.
Which again, respect. Wolf, you want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. So for the next question, so like we established, you wrote for a lot of other genres. Is there a genre you are interested in writing for which you didn't yet? If yes, what is it? And what is it? And if you are planning on writing it after you're done with the next series?
Probably the horror genre. Like I've done really intense, very visual horror scenes in some of my stories, but I've never actually gone into the horror genre itself.
Yeah, you said thrillers, which is going there, but it's not horror.
Yeah, it hasn't. It kind of pushes the envelope towards horror, but I haven't crossed over yet. And I'm hoping to one day. Like my son, he loves horror movies. He loves psychological thrillers, and he's always telling me that one day I should try and mimic Stephen King and do something like The It or something. Something like Firestarter. Get into that horror genre.
If I may ask you a personal favor, please don't do It. I hate that one.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would ever actually do It. It's a good movie. It's not exactly my favorite or anything. My son just really likes it. So he's the one who usually is kind of like, hey, how about you try this? And it's like, let's move more towards Carrie, or Christine. Or if you want something Stephen King-ish, let's look at those ones. Get away from clowns.
Okay, very interesting. And hopefully, as long as there are no killer clowns, and as long as there's no Tim Curry there to hunt my young self's nightmares, I'll be there. Maybe we'll see. So,
okay.
Wolf, you're next.
Yeah. Were any of your characters in your books, have they been based on yourself or people you know, and how much do you draw from your own life into the stories you write?
A lot of the times I draw from my own life for like different family members, friends, some people who really inspire me. When I started doing the Raven's Realm series, it's actually kind of a funny story. My sister, she was 12 years old at the time, and she was getting herself into all kinds of trouble. Just unbelievable some of the stuff she was getting into. And I was really upset with her. So I decided to base her brattiness, like take all that brattiness that she had and this attitude she was copying, and put that into my character Eli. And I aged Eli up a little bit, but I wanted to take all that and write about it and kind of express how disappointed I was with her, how scared I was for her into the series. And then it kind of blossomed into this whole magic series. So it's, I take a lot of inspiration from the world around me and people around me.
That's actually interesting that, from being maddish about your sister, you managed to get this series going and, have several books published thanks to it. So you see everything, even annoying siblings have purposes, I suppose.
Well, she named her oldest son after the book. She named her son Raven as a way of saying thank you for writing a book about me. And it's like, well, have you read the book? Because it's not very nice about you. It takes all your brightness. I mean, your kids would not be appreciative if they knew that you were the main character. But yeah, it was an interesting turnout. She loved it. She loved the whole idea. She bought the entire series the moment she could.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for the next question was if you can tell us a bit about the new book that's coming out, but you kind of did that. So yeah, and you
Yeah.
did touch upon this, but you know, as you probably know, a lot of book series are getting big, big screen adaptations or TV shows and stuff. As as the idea of an adaptation ever was ever brought up to you, like by the publishers or something else? Was it ever something that was in talks?
Um, Not really. I pretty much, when I started writing film scripts of certain novels, I did that myself. This new series, the publisher I'm with, we have discussed it a bit because he does screenwriting as well.
Mhm.
And he's in the middle of promoting one of his screenplays, try and get produced into a film. I work with a lot of um, indie film directors and such,
Yeah,
and
independent filmmakers, yes.
yeah, lots of independent film guilds, and nobody's really approached me for it. Like, um, I did have, this is going back about 10 years ago. I was working with a group, and we were hoping to turn um, one of my scripts that was based on one of the book series into a film, but it just never got off. Looking back, I'm actually happy it didn't because I would prefer this new series, which is more realistic and easier to do to be a film series or, you know, a film and then a series.
Hmm.
Even Netflix, I would love Netflix to take it.
Yeah. Which, Netflix do kind of take everything. So
Mhm.
maybe crossing my fingers for you.
Well, after I'm done writing the entire series, I'm actually hoping to go back and write film scripts for each one. At least a full film script for the first book and maybe um, a series for the other three. I'm not quite sure yet, but yeah, I would love to see this in film.
Hmm. Well, here's hoping. Like, hopefully, the next time we'll bring you back, it will be to promote one of the movies. You know,
Yeah.
may that be so. So,
Oh, I
Wolf,
sure hope.
yeah, we're hoping with you. So, Wolf, what you got the next question?
Well, I'm going to once more go off script a little bit. You've mentioned writing erotica and everything. From what I understand, right? I don't know if it still is, but from what I understood in the past, right, there is kind of this stigma to that where it's viewed as overly schlocky or not as good as regular fiction because of insert reasons here, right? And
Yes.
I'm curious, right? What would you say to someone who wants to get into writing and wants to write erotica, but is kind of put off by what they feel that stigma is, right? Is there anything you would say to someone like that?
I would say just write what you want. If you want to write erotica, write erotica. Don't let your stigmatism scare you away. Don't let other people's stigmatism scare you away because you might not find the right publisher right away, but you will find a publisher that's going to fall in love with it. It's just persistence. And worst case scenario, if you don't find the publisher who wants it, publish it yourself. Just make sure you have a really good beta team, like beta readers, editors, a professional cover. You can do all of it yourself and promote it yourself. I went through that stage before I was picked up by a publisher. The whole Raven's Realm series was originally self-published before I found a publisher.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, they actually were the ones that said to me, don't be afraid to write erotica. Sex sells. It might not sell to the publisher you want. Like you might not get in with Random House because you have an overly sexual scene, but you'll find it. You just have to know how to market it and where to look. And it takes time. Do your research.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay, so that also kind of the question was basically, tips for aspiring writers, but I think you kind of nailed it on the head with this one. So write what you
Yeah.
want, people. That's all you need to know. Just do your thing. Do your
Well,
thing.
and that's the number one. That's the number one point of being a writer. you're not really writing for everybody else, especially when you first start. You're not writing for everybody else. You're writing for yourself. So write what you want. When I started writing, even back when I did fan fiction, I wrote what I wanted to see. Way back when I did Transformers, they had like next to no female Transformers, so I wrote about female Transformers. How to Train Your Dragon, I wrote about everything. So I don't even want to go into detail on that one because there's like in total over 100 and some odd stories. But yeah, when you write, you're writing what you want to see, what you want to have happen. You're not writing for, the guy 2 doors over to read it. You're not writing what he wants to see because you don't know what he wants to see. You have to write for yourself.
Well, so these were basically the questions, regarding your career. Now, some personal get to know you questions about other stuff. Are you ready?
Sure thing.
So, who's your favorite author? You kind of mentioned this, but quick answer, top of your head.
Okay, Laurel K. Hamilton, Kelly Armstrong, Stephen King. Oh gosh, Anne Rice. Oh my God, there's too many of them. I got like a huge library of books.
But if we forced you to choose, who would you pick top?
Yeah.
Oh, top one?
The hard
Yeah,
question.
the top one.
Top one, Laurel K. Hamilton.
Okay. And favorite book? Not necessarily his. Jones.
Oh, favorite book. That's a hard one. Oh, this might take me a moment.
It's okay.
Yeah, there's so many. I have such a huge collection of books, like over 300 different novels. Anything by Laurel K. Hamilton, honestly. She has the Anita Blake vampire series. That's an amazing series and great erotica. It's very dark and it kind of borderlines on fantasy and horror. And there's erotica in it, of course, but I mean.
No, of course.
Of course.
Well, so Wolf.
Any other things you've enjoyed watching or playing or reading that have caught your attention?
I don't really watch a lot of television. I'll watch the odd movie with my son. I'm a huge fan of the Big Bang series.
And,
I've
been there. Everything's okay.
And of course, I love the How to Train Your Dragon series.
Woot.
The She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
Another woot.
The He-Man series, both the original and the 2000X, and now we got the new one coming out soon, which hats off to Kevin Smith for getting all that going. Let's see. Yeah, I don't watch a lot of television.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Very fair.
That's fine, but you still got some things here that are definitely worth checking out. So
yes.
Would you say there's a person that was always beside you throughout everything?
Finding that publisher. I've done self-publishing. The publisher I was with just before I got this new one, I still have a lot of books with her. I think the biggest concern that I had was marketing. Trying to get the word out, trying to do advertising, especially online, because I'm so old school sometimes. I'm used to just calling up bookstores, calling up the radio, calling up my friends in television and doing things that way. Nowadays everything's digital, so it's relearning.
But as long as you got it.
Yes, exactly. The people I'm working with now, they're very good at digital marketing, so that makes a big difference.
Okay. Awesome. Wolf, you got the next one.
Yeah. Where are we at? There. Okay. If you could choose a different career path, what would it be, or would you even choose one?
Um, Not really. I don't think I would change career paths. Right now I've pretty much got my dream job and everything, and doing the books have always been my dream. Maybe working more in film. I
Very
work
fair.
with indie film sometimes, and usually I'm the one that's tagging along, writing up the articles for the newspaper because I've done journalism.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the only thing I would change is probably get more into film.
Very fair.
Yeah, that's and a lot of people make that change. So, yeah. Well,
Mhm.
would you say that your career has any memorable or impactful moment?
Um, I don't know. Like I do a lot of conventions. I talk to a lot of people. I try and help those I can with the writing goals and finding the right resources, because that's a main thing that a lot of new authors they need help with. Finding resources on where to look for publication, where to look for research, or keeping the courage to finish a project that they began. So many people start writing and then stop halfway. I know authors that it takes them years to get one book written. And that's not even including publication, that's just writing. So helping keep people motivated.
George R. Martin peeks out of the corner.
Uh, he peeks and then he can go back to the corner, maybe.
Oh, he very much does. He's still there, writing away. We'll get that next book.
Yeah,
Jokes
maybe.
aside, though.
Yeah, jokes aside, you got the next one.
Yeah. What are you most excited for now in terms of your interests going forward?
Well, after finishing this series, probably starting the next series.
Yeah, but like this was
Busy
more in
life of
terms
an
of
author.
interests, not your work, just in terms of the things you like to do in your spare time.
Well, right now with the pandemic going on, I don't get to go very far.
Fair.
I actually work from home and everything. But what I'm hoping to do this summer, and it's kind of funny because in book 2, this is something that I did research for book 2, but my son and I were taking a small cruise, the local cruise, and we're going up to see some of the places that are going to be featured in book 2.
Interesting.
So
Well,
you'd
I
say
hope.
doing the research kind of inspired you to go check out those places for yourself more?
Well, yes, because right now with everything that's going on, they can't do the
Yeah.
cruise until July, as soon as the lockdown's lifted here in Canada, well, here in Ontario.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping to go out. It's a day cruise, and we go out and see the North Channel. And there's some very beautiful, almost tropical-like islands out there with crystal clear water to go swimming in. So our goal is to take this day cruise, go out to see this section that's in book 2 and book 3, and just get to finally experience it ourselves.
That sounds really fun. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with all that said, we kind of went over all of the questions. So, any words you got to leave us with?
Well, just to all the inspiring or aspiring authors out there, keep writing. Don't let stigmatism stop you. I mean, write what you want. When you first start writing, you're not writing for everybody else. You're just writing for yourself. And if you want to share it with the world, then share it with the world. And you can always edit and everything afterwards. So
So
that's
basically, just do what you can, and good luck to everyone.
exactly.
Mhm.
So
Well,
thank you again. Oh,
I
sorry.
thank I was just about to say thank you for taking the time to be here again. And with that said, that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed Have you heard about our dear MJ here? Did you read her books? Do you just know her for the first time? Did you know the books but not her? You can tell us all about it and leave all the nice words that you have to say to her in the comment section below. We are also on Tumblr, where we are known as Berkcast Team, and on Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So, MJ, where can people find you?
Well, I have a website at www.mjspickett.weebly.com. I'm also on Facebook under MJ Spickett, Twitter MJ Spickett. You can find me on Amazon at amazon.com/author/MJ Spickett. For anybody having trouble spelling Spickett, Spickett.
All right. We'll also send us links after we're done. We'll put them in the description so that people can find them.
Links below in the description for you.
That sounds great.
So that's all for this time. I was HC.
I was Wolf, and definitely go check out, the God Amongst Dragons series, Brothers, Victory, and the third book, which I forget the name of right off the top of my head. Very enjoyable from what I've read so far. Beyond, yeah. Very enjoyable series from what I've read so far, and definitely check out Whispers of the Immortals coming out in 2022. First book. Sounds like it'll be very interesting from what we've heard the heroes thus far.
It's been a lot of fun to write.
All right,
thank you for having me.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you again for coming in. We'll definitely love to bring you again once the books the next set of books is making the rounds. And to everyone listening, take care. See you later.
Bye-bye.